All right. Who do we have in the house today? Chuck Kim, Executive Digital. How are you, man?
Hey man, doing great, Kendall. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a
Great
while.
seeing you,
It
my
has been
man.
a while. No, haven't seen you either. I've seen the pandemic has been good for you. Look at that. Look at that.
All right, it's a new look. My
Nice.
Alex calls it the Wuhan look.
The Wuhan. There you go. There you go. Well, one of the things that yeah, a lot of people know that I help businesses with their business technology and doing a lot of the digital transformation from an infrastructure standpoint. And then I partner with good folks, just like yourself and your team. But I tell a lot of people how hard, digital commerce and, communicating over digital and online is now. And the world has changed so much, even these past couple of, months.
Absolutely.
And so I want to get, some of the professionals like yourself and your team. But before I get to all my questions, tell us a little bit about Executive Digital and yourself and,
Sure.
a little bit more about the story behind why you're doing what you do with regards to being a marketing agency.
Absolutely. I'm one of the owners of Executive Digital. I have two business partners, Alex and Tony, out in Miami. Executive Digital right now, we're at 9 offices around the world. We opened up Oslo, Norway last year. We have over 120 employees where we manage everything from SEO, web dev, social media, digital ads, design work, and so forth, all in-house. Because our objective is to help business owners from an enterprise level all the way down to the small mom and pop shops develop their digital ecosystem around their brand. And it's been very important for us to be very transparent to the clients, especially when it comes to SEO, which is a very activity-based marketing strategy, making sure that everyone can see what we're doing, so that way they know that we're getting the proper activities done and sending out the right signals. So that way, at the end of the day, the results are going to be there, and showing those results are really important to us. But I've been doing this for over 13 years. My business partner, Alex, has been doing this since the mid-90s. We have a passion with digital marketing because we're a bunch of entrepreneurs. And we know that the biggest thing when you grow a business is how do you multiply your brand voice? How do you get in front of as many targeted consumers as you can? Back in the traditional methods of marketing, you're either knocking doors or making phone calls, and that worked. Now digital marketing has that platform to where you can get in front of thousands to hundreds of thousands of consumers on a daily basis. So,
And now it's more important than ever. So, I'll talk a little bit more about your business. How has your business changed these past
sure.
couple of months?
In terms of our operations, it hasn't changed as much. The types of conversations are definitely increasing. I think for the most part, a lot of businesses have been impacted by coronavirus because their conferences that they're typically budgeted for and they attend throughout the year, they can't attend because conferences are pretty much shut down, except for some have pivoted towards a virtual, but that even still, that environment doesn't provide the same environment as an in-person conference does. And then like referral networking groups too. I mean, they've had to pivot more virtual as well because everything going on with coronavirus. So now more than ever, a lot of businesses are seeking out, well, how do I get found on Google? It's become more important to them because businesses that have really relied on that traditional method of marketing, they've really seen a decline in that. So they haven't seen as much growth through those marketing channels. And now they're like, well, how do we really get on Google and drive digital leads? So from that standpoint, that has definitely increased for us. But in terms of the way we operate and so forth, we could, it's been the same.
Right. And so how you operate has been the same. So let's go into what is one of your specialties, and that's SEO. So can you talk about what is SEO and a little bit more depth about that?
Yeah, very high level. Search engine optimization is the practice of getting your website URL and multiple pages within your website to be ranked on the first page of Google for targeted keywords. What does SEO entail? Well, that's over 200 plus major signals that Google's looking at, plus over 2,000 sub signals that Google's taking consideration. So SEO is very, at this point, because of all the updates and changes over the years with Google, it's pretty inundated to be a very activity based marketing strategy. I mean, you have to do all the on page elements, continuously monitor that to make sure you're hitting all the update and keeping up to date with all the algorithm changes, and then building off all the off-page signals and so forth. So it's a lot of work, a lot of strategy and collaboration with our clients. It's always changing in the methodologies of trying to improve your SEO, but the foundational elements have always stayed the same. There's very foundational elements to SEO.
And so one of the things that I want to talk about and get more in depth in is that a lot of these business owners, and you deal with a lot of those who are on an enterprise level and medium-sized businesses and larger businesses, what are they looking at from all the different retail chains that have happened, changing and pivoting, and hasn't that been a lot for them? So what are some of the focuses that you found that has really worked well with people pivoting and trying to ramp up as well?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've had a number of conversations with traditional retail stores where they're still operating. They're doing okay from that front, but they're more open to creating an e-commerce store to continuously push more products and so forth, because they're seeing that the amount of purchases being done on Amazon has significantly increased since March, and so they're trying to make sure that they're creating these different revenue streams from e-commerce sales to justify any type of lapse or decline in the retail storefronts. And we're seeing, obviously, every consumer is seeing that a lot of retail stores have been extremely hurt from all this, and they've shut down. And so their biggest pivot is making a massive push towards e-commerce if they haven't fully gone bankrupt or whatnot.
Right. And I think one of the hardest things about moving from, like you're talking about, traditional going and doing networking groups and doing the conferences and then moving towards an e-commerce, that's kind of like a big mind pivot. How do you help people do that?
Well, a lot of it's coaching and education. Our fundamentals and approach to new clients, it's all about education and giving proper expectations of what to expect, because especially when it comes to search engine optimization, you have a lot of people who are in the mindset like, hey, I want leads yesterday, or I want as many leads as possible now, and they don't have the patience for it. When it comes to SEO, it's a long-term investment. You have to have patience for it. At some point, there's a tipping point where your visibility just hits that J curve and starts skyrocketing. Your traffic and conversions really start happening. But long-term wise, if you stick with it, we've always seen across the board that your cost per lead, cost per acquisitions are always going to be the lowest when it comes to organic traffic and conversions. And then after that, we really build on top of that by supplementing with digital ads and social media and everything else.
And that's what I liked about your team. And folks, as you're listening, if you want to have some resources, we do have that educational things. That's a checklist down below in the comment section at wefixlazywebsites.com. Very fancy. so We Fix Lazy Websites. Put your email information. We'll get a checklist out to you and some other goodies to you that'll help your business later on today. But one of the things you're talking about with educating individuals and changing their mindset, it's also folks of, all right, there's a lot of layoffs and things that are happening on the technology side, because that's some of the things that I do from a broker. Have you seen people looking at more different technologies to help them communicate better?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. The biggest thing with technology, especially when you're dealing with mom and pop shops or one man to five person operation, they don't have the time to answer all the calls that are being generated, or follow up with the calls, or achieve or increase the amount of reviews that they're getting on Google Maps or Yelp or whatnot. And so there's a lot of different technologies that they can streamline this and automate a lot of that. I'd steer away from automating all things SEO, just because you're not gonna you're really going to be kicking yourself in the rear if you try doing that. But there are things within the processes within an operation that you can definitely automate, and that's where you really come and play. But yeah, I mean, anytime we see an area where a business owner is failing to capitalize on leads generated from SEO or digital ads or social media or whatnot, we bring in suggestions like, hey, you might not be the best person to answer that call. So you might want to have an outsourced team answering your calls and setting up appointments for you and capitalizing on as many calls that you're generating because you're paying for that marketing investment. And so like to automate those processes and recapture the clients that you were able to capture and put them into the funnel, getting reviews, getting them as recurring clients and so forth. There are ways to automate that and really get the message out, stay in front of consumers and so forth.
And one of the things that you wrote recently, because you're a Forbes contributor, aren't you?
I am, yeah. So we're part of the Forbes Agency Council. I like to be modest. I don't really like both sides. But yeah, I did post an article every now and then. Whenever I have an inkling of time during my day, I'll try to write an article or answer questions from Forbes. Yeah.
Right. So is also that content writing, and Forbes is a large organization. A lot of people see it. So your team, I know that you go from San Diego to Serbia, or you're worldwide, right?
Yeah. I'm traveling everywhere right now.
Right.
I'm mostly grounded. So
mostly, right? So as you're looking, over these next couple of months until the next year, what are some things what are 3 things that business owners should do if they want to ramp up their business from an e-commerce standpoint or from a digital marketing standpoint, in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. If they haven't really done much digital marketing, from an SEO standpoint, you got to have time and patience. And so there's no better day to start a proper SEO campaign than today. Especially like if you're a service-based company or you're a seasonal company. So like if right now we're in August, if your hot season's at the beginning of summer, you want to start your SEO campaign now. And you have to put in that timeline within your mind that maybe that entails a brand new website to make it SEO friendly and then implement SEO. So you could be looking anywhere from, I don't know how quick other website companies launch sites, but on average about 3 months to build out a brand new site, implement SEO strategies, which, you're looking at like minimum of 6 months to really see upticks and so forth. And so that's 9 months that you're really looking at. So that's a really long-term investment. The other question that we always encounter is how do we generate leads quicker as that's building up? And that's depending on like an e-commerce store with clothing articles or whatnot. That could be social ads, could be Google AdWords, Google Display Network, a lot of other different digital ad channels, or even email marketing, where you want to build that impression up even faster. Typically with those, we generally educate our clients like, look, like if you haven't pushed ads before, there's no history of data. You want to give that 2-3 months after you launch campaigns to build up that data. So that way you can optimize your digital ad spends even better and know that you're not just blowing through your budget and you're trying to minimize those holes within your budget funnels. And so that's really the big timelines. It really all depends on budget and patience.
Right. And I think it's also making sure people are clear that it's not, from an SEO standpoint, it's not, it doesn't sound like it's going to happen overnight. Is that correct? Like if I can, like back in the day, couldn't you just like put in a keyword and just pops up number 1 most of the times?
Yeah, I mean, people would do all kinds of different black hat strategies to do that. I think Google's gotten pretty darn good about minimizing what type of black hat strategies people are able to do. So yeah, I mean, very rarely would I expect something overnight like that, unless it's a very uncompetitive field. Then we could probably get you guys ranking really fast. But that's really all across the board. It just depends on what that competitive field looks like.
And so now it's more about integrating the processes together. That's what you're talking about. Maybe laying in a PPC campaign while the SEO is building out.
Yeah, yeah. As well as being active on social media, building your brand presence, depending on what industry you're involved with. But yeah, it's the bigger picture. I think the bigger conversation is how do you scale up your marketing team to achieve all these brand impressions and getting more visibility around your brand to drive those consumers into your sales funnel. And it is very difficult for one person to do that. So like that's why when we have conversations with marketing directors and their teams, it's more about how do we scale an area? How do we help you scale in areas that you don't have the bandwidth for, or the know-how, and then we help you really scale that. For small business owners, obviously, that's pretty much going to be everything. So it's a matter of, okay, well, how do we organize all this, make sure that everything is working congruently with each other, and we keep building on top of that. But it is more of a compound effect than an overnight success.
Now, I know you're busy and you have to go soon, but I want to be cognizant of your time. Where you flying to this in the next couple of weeks? You staying home? You're flying out somewhere? What's going on with you?
Well, I'm trying to visit Alex and our Serbian team in Novi Sad. I was supposed to actually be out there at the beginning of July, but then the Serbian president declared lockdown, and then everyone went on protest. So I had to cancel my trip out there. So I'm hoping I can get out there September, October, but I got to fly out to Vegas and train some sales employees and small travels.
Gotcha. Well, how large is your team?
We're over 120 employees now. And, again, we have project managers, content managers, dev managers, the whole 9 yards. So we work on 3 different time zones. So I'm usually in the office quite early here in Scottsdale.
Right.
So anytime you want to have breakfast with me, Kendall, just let me know.
Nice. Well, folks, as you listen to this, Chuck, the executive digital team, great folks. That's why I work with them. So if you want to get some more information, like the checklist that we have available, just go to that WeFixLazyWebsites.com.
Absolutely.
And I'll get some stuff loaded and sent out to you. Before I let you go, Chuck, I know that you're a student. Of a whole bunch of different things.
Gotta be.
What books or what type of blogs or what type of content that people should be reading to now? Because the stuff that was done in the past, the book that was written in the past, you can just throw those out. it's the now normal.
Right.
So what should we be looking at or studying now?
Sure. A great thing is just really being caught up in terms of. So when we're talking about search engine optimization specifically, there's a lot of great resources. Ahrefs has an amazing blog. The content they push out on a daily basis is phenomenal. So subscribe to their blog. They're amazing content. Look at Neil Patel. You can look at the content that Rand Fishkin pushes out. Moz.com pushes out. I know Rand's not with Moz, and it's been a couple of years since that's happened. But there's a lot of resources. Those are probably the top 4 or 5 resources that we're constantly reading into, looking at, and trying to stay in tune with all the changes going on, and seeing if there's any other suggestions from the top SEO experts around the nation. We're always being a student in this game.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, folks, as you're listening to this, make sure that you click the subscribe button and the notifications. And if you like this content, that helps me know that you want more of this type of content and these type of interviews with experts who are in the trenches actually doing the things that need to be done. So, Chuck, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
You're welcome, Kendall. Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. And hi to everyone, and hope you guys are all staying safe and healthy.
All right. And folks, make sure you just keep on moving forward, pivot, and ramp up. We'll talk to you soon.
I agree. All right. Thanks, Kendall.